What happens when a public figure's private life turns into a public tragedy? And how does that story get told to the world? Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at the tragic events involving former Virginia Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax. But we're going a step further. We're going to pull back the curtain on the BBC's reporting to really understand the crucial choices journalists have to make when a terrible story breaks.
So this story centers on someone who was, a pretty big deal in Virginia politics, a former top official.
But this story, it isn't really about politics at all. As the BBC reported, authorities quickly described the horrific event as a murder-suicide involving former Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax and his wife, Cerina.
And here's the part that's just absolutely heartbreaking. Their two teenage children were reportedly in the house when this all went down.
All right, so let's dive into this. First, we've got to establish the fundamental facts of the case, straight from that initial news report.
So what exactly happened? Well, according to the police briefing, a call came into 911 from the family's home in Annandale, Virginia, shortly after midnight. And that call was made by the couple's son. Based on their initial investigation, police came to a terrible conclusion that Justin Fairfax had shot his wife, Cerina, before taking his own life.
Now, to really get why this was such a shocking headline, you have to understand who Justin Fairfax was as a public figure.
Yeah, this timeline really paints a picture, doesn't it? On one hand, a historic achievement in Virginia politics, but on the other, his time in office was completely clouded by two very serious sexual assault allegations. Now, he denied them, but they were always there in the background. It's this complicated public history that sets the stage for the tragedy.
And, the county police chief kind of hit the nail on the head with this quote during his press briefing. He called it a fall from grace. And that phrase, it just perfectly captures how a lot of people saw it. Here's this family that, from the outside, looked like they had everything. And now they're at the center of something just unthinkable.
Okay, so that's the public side of the story. Now let's shift gears and look at the private details that started coming out from the police investigation. This is where the narrative gets even more complicated.
So the big question, right, the one everyone's asking is just why? What on earth could have possibly led to something this horrific?
Well, investigators immediately pointed to what the police chief called ongoing domestic issues. He described it as a complicated or messy divorce, and he noted that the couple was separated but still living in the same house. But maybe the most chilling detail, police said they found no evidence of a long fight, suggesting it all happened, in the chief's words, pretty spontaneously.
And the news just sent shockwaves through the state's political world. His former boss, Governor Ralph Northam, put out this statement expressing his sorrow. It's just a reminder that even in the world of politics, there are these real personal connections.
Okay, so we have the facts of the case, but honestly, that's only half the story. The really crucial part for our explainer today isn't just what happened, but how the story of what happened was built for the public. This is where we get into the nuts and bolts of broadcast news.
Because you got to remember, a news report isn't just a simple list of facts, especially with something this sensitive. It is a series of very careful, very deliberate choices about what to tell you, and just as importantly, what not to tell you.
And this slide shows you exactly what I'm talking about. On the left, that's what made it into the report. Official police statements, reactions from public figures, context on his career, even links to helplines. Now look at the right. This is what was intentionally left out. You can think of it as a kind of journalistic redaction. No graphic forensic details, the identities of the children were protected, there was no wild speculation on a motive. This was a conscious, ethical choice to only report the verified facts.
And that right there is the tightrope journalists have to walk, isn't it? The goal is to inform the public. We have a right to know what's going on, but to do it responsibly, without turning a family's worst nightmare into entertainment. It's about relaying the news, not sensationalizing the trauma. So this leaves us with a really critical question to think about next time you consume the news. The core facts of an event might be set in stone, but the story is not. The narrative we receive is always a product of choice, what's highlighted and what's redacted. And those choices don't just shape our understanding, they shape the memory and the legacy of everyone involved.